Thank you for joining me. This is kind of off topic from the Love Your Lettering series, but there was a question that came up in Lettering League on Facebook, and it was about lefties. So I'm jumping on real quick to give you a look at that. Okay, sorry. Thanks for those of you that are tuning in. My name is Lisa. I blog at CreativLEI.com. I'm currently on Periscope twice a day for the Love Your Lettering series, but this afternoon, Becca in the Lettering League, she asked a question about lefties. Hi! Those that hook or curl their hand and how to address that with the pointed pen. So this is way outside of the beginner series of the Love Your Lettering because this is with a pointed pen, and I'm going to use the brush pens too and just kind of give a glance at what are some of the ways we compensate with our left hand, because most of these pens are designed for right-handed people. So I just wanted to go ahead and flip the screen and then, or flip the camera so that you guys can see what I mean by holding the pen. Yeah, I'm not really going to talk about right-handed writing right now. I'm going to just be showing how lefties may or may not hold the pen and how to get the correct orientation to get the pen to write for a left-handed person. If you have questions that I can answer, feel free to ask away, but I am definitely, when it comes to handwriting, I am definitely dominant left, so kind of bear with me for that. You may find it interesting just to watch or not, but if you want to stick around. Okay, so I've got a couple of pens that I took out. We're in the midst of packing to move, so some things are in storage, and I found that my favorite pointed pen was used as a dart by one of my children, and so that is now out of commission, which makes me incredibly sad because that's from Italy. I have a copper plate nib, which is oblique, and I can use that on a straight pen. This happens to be my favorite method of using the pointed. And then this is, I believe, a Hunt nib in an oblique holder. And these are kind of old and well worn. So let's see. I'm trying to get the tripod orientation with this is going to be a little bit tricky, because while for the regular pens I don't shift my paper very much, with the pointed pen I have to, or any dip calligraphy pen. So I think the first thing I'll show is probably with the Tombow. Obliques is for the copper plate or for the pointed pen, that's how I learned. I'm not sure if it changes depending on the way you grip a pen. I do not turn my hand or hook it like is normal or what would be considered proper holding for a lefty. I hold my pen kind of mirroring right hand. So let's see, I've got, oh thanks. Alright, I'm going to move some of these things out of the way. I'm trying to get it so that the camera is picking up the angle that I would hold that I'm sitting to the paper. Okay, so this is the regular portrait orientation of the paper, and that's how I would hold it if I was using the brush pen. Again, I am a pen pusher, meaning that I push the pen in the direction that I'm writing, because my grip is kind of mirrored, I think, to right-handed writing, where if you were right-handed and holding it properly, you pull the pen as you write. So it makes, when you're pressing the pressure on this nib or tip of the pen, it will vary just by your pressure, whereas those of us that push the pen with our left hand, we really have to kind of switch our positioning a little bit. So let's see. If I do like my up and downs, I'll just write minimum because that gets a few different. Okay, so you can see those upstrokes and then placing the pressure. if I were right-handed and pulling the pen, that would certainly change how that nib is going to flex. So let's dot that I. Let's get the, all right, so now this is my copper plate nib, and I'm gonna put, I've got acrylic ink from Dollar Downey, or Dollar Rowney, sorry. Now, in order to write the same word, I'm actually going to shift the whole orientation of my paper. So again, the camera is right in front of me, just so that you have the angle that I'm working on. And now to do with the pointed pen, I'm actually holding the paper perpendicular to me. And I'm not going to get the ink to run. Oh goodness, I might have let it dry too much on the tip there. Ah! And yeah, splatter, that's what happens sometimes with dip. So as you can see, not very smooth. I'm a little out of practice with the dip pen because I've become so used to using the brush. But so now if I go out a little bit, you'll see, again, the camera is from the perspective of like right in front of me. So my hand is in front of me and I'm writing towards my body in order to get thick and thin. Let's see. I need more ink. So again, my hand is pretty much a mirror of if I were right-handed, which is why I've got the paper shifted this much. I'm just going to do it a couple times because I've not properly warmed up with the pointed pen. Oh, and I dotted a U. That's awesome. Okay, so now the other type of left-handed grip is when someone hooks the pen or hooks their hand. So that's going to kind of change everything from how someone that mirrors right-handed, if you're hooking your hand, you're actually getting the pen closer to the method that a right-handed person is going, because you'll be pulling the pen instead of pushing it the way us other lefties do it. So you're going to want to orient the paper to where it's most closely going to go for, like if someone were right-handed and holding the pen this way, someone that hooks their hand is going to have to change their paper orientation to meet that angle. So it's going to be like they're writing backwards. And there you go, lefty problems. Fingers in the ink, always. Another reason why I love my brush pens. So let me clean this off real quick and try to do it with the brush, maybe a little bit easier for me. Okay. So now here I have the brush again. And now if I were hooking my hand, I'm going to, yeah, I know, and I put a lot of ink on there. If I was hooking my hand, I would need to change the orientation of the paper to match close enough to the angle that the right-handed person would. I don't know if that makes sense. So let's see. I had it perpendicular for mirroring. So if you were hooking, you would almost need to go maybe just at a 45-degree angle. So let's see. Hooking is not my natural grip, so bear with me as I practice this too. So let's see. to get the thick and thins, and it's somewhere in the middle of these two, huh? I've got the paper at a 45-degree angle to my body. So let's see if I can get it to focus. So this was perpendicular. This is straight, or straight on. And this is 45 degree. So this was with a hooked hand. And these were mirroring. Okay, so who are my lefties that are do we have any lefties that are still on here? If you'll let me know whether you hook your hand or mirror the right hand, that might be helpful for others to see kind of what the percentage of. Deb's still here, awesome. Do you hook your hand? You don't hook. Yeah, I would think that the majority of us probably mirror, unless you were learning penmanship in school, probably a couple, maybe more than a couple of decades ago. When I learned penmanship in school, my hand did not get corrected. I think those that hook their hand are probably those that got corrected in school for writing, where it was assumed that the only way to write without smearing was to hook the hand. I think the majority of us lefties are probably mirroring the grip of the right-handed. No one would teach you to write. Yeah, Deb, it's definitely a challenge, I think, for the swapping between the right hand and the left hand for people, and I think it's probably difficult for both of us to try to assume the position of the other. And I know even I have two sons that are left-handed, and they don't hook their hand either. And I didn't make a pointed attempt at teaching them grip. I just kind of watched their others. You cut right-handed because they major in school. Yeah, I write left-handed, and I'm dominant left when it comes to writing. But when I paint, when I cut, playing ball, things like that, I do that all right-handed. Pamphlet for you to copy and learn cursive, and taught that hooking was incorrect. Oh, Tina, that's good to know. I know my calligraphy teacher was not sure what to do with me because I did not like turning the paper that was in the way that it was suggested in most books, and I didn't do too well. There are left-handed nibs. Okay. So let me see if I have two nibs that are the same size. So this is a C2, and this is a C2. Oh, they look the same. Okay, so I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but this right here is a left, I'll turn them into the right hand. This is a left-handed C2, and this is a right-handed C2. And if you look very closely, the nib is actually angled in the opposite direction. Your husband is lefty and hooks for his writing, but he's in his late 50s. I'm in my late 30s, and I don't hook my hand. And all my penmanship teachers have always been right-handed. So yeah, so there are different things, but I will tell you that I mostly used the right-handed nib when I was doing regular italic calligraphy with the broad nib. Like I said, I have the lefty nibs, but I don't always use those. And some of them are mixed. I guess most of them are mixed. I just learned how to compensate by my paint, by turning my paper. And then again, once I got to start playing with copperplate and using the oblique nib was helpful for me. I have the oblique pen holder, or the barrel, is okay for me, but I definitely did much better with the oblique nib. That became very comfortable for me. So, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not going to stay on long because we are running out to dance. But hopefully Becca will be able to see this. I don't know if it will be helpful, but yeah, that's the main thing Yes, I can write with either hand on a chalkboard too. The bigger my lettering gets, the more I can manipulate with both hands. So that's the basics of what I was trying. The point I was trying to make was that mostly with a pointed pen, I have to change where I hold the book or the paper that's in front of me. I have to change that orientation, and a lot of it just comes from practice and finding a comfortable method. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Becca, once you see this, if you want to send me a message to clarify, I'd be happy to answer, but I thought that showing would be easier. Am I sending out different alphabet fonts on my blog? Yes, my subscribers will, if you've subscribed through the Love Your Lettering page, at some point before Sunday or on Sunday, you will receive the faux typography alphabet and the faux brush alphabet. I'm going to try and send those out to my subscriber list. Hopefully that's helpful. Were there any other questions before we head off? I think maybe Becca, did you just come in? I'll just do a quick explanation if. No, oh, that's okay. Oh, good, you are there. All right, so I don't know if I really answered what you're asking, but I tried to show most of the time, in order to compensate, I'm just shifting my paper more so than the hand. And I know you were asking about those specifically that curl their hand or hook their hand, and I am not a curler. I am, and I showed the difference between the pen and the marker. So the camera's view is kind of right in front of me, straight, like I'm looking right through the camera onto the paper. And so when I use the brush marker, I'm assuming that this is a mirrored image to what a right-handed person would be holding. And so I'm able to just keep my paper straight. Okay. Whereas someone who is hooking their hand, they're actually, that pen position is getting a little bit closer to the right-handed. Does that make sense? So they may have to change the angle of their paper in order to get the proper thick and thin strokes. Does that... But do you see what the difference is? So a left-handed person that mirrors right is always pushing the pen. We're pushing that nib, and that's why we bust through pens way too fast, and that's why these are much harder to write with. But those that are hooking, the reason why they hook is to get the hand out of the way, and also because it puts them back on the orientation of writing from left to right. However, for most of us, and I had a few lefties in this scope, and the majority of us are all mirrors. So we hold our pen to mirror the way a right-handed person was, and so that just means we push the pen. So let me switch out to, I've always found that the oblique nibs were more comfortable for me than the oblique pen with a straight nib. Yeah, I'm sure that it is, because now you'll see I can't mirror in this direction, because then the nib is just not going to do what it needs to do. So what I end up doing is turning my paper to the 90 degrees, or perpendicular to me. And now I end up writing towards myself. I think it's just a regular oblique. I didn't know. I guess, would a lefty oblique just be upside down? So I've found it more easy to learn how to compensate with the tools that I have. Okay. So yeah, I find it easier to shift my paper. And so obviously I'm a bit out of practice with my pointed pen and dip pen techniques, but hopefully that helps to show you what I meant by the orientation. So with the copper plate, or straight nib, that's what I do. I end up writing towards myself so that my pen is actually being held very similar to how it would be oriented, obviously not mirroring anymore, but getting the angle right so that the pen can do its work. So hopefully that makes sense. But again, so now if you have people that are trying to use the pointed pen that hook, yeah, I've found it easier with the pointed, the oblique nib. Now, fountain pens are a whole different bugger for me. I do have a fountain pen on my desk too, if that would help. But now, here's the problem though with those people that are going to hook their hands, is going to be quite difficult for them to get that proper angle. So they would probably want to steer clear of oblique and get a straight nib, because now say the paper is straight in front of me and I'm hooking my hand, this is way off. So they're going to need to shift quite a bit. And I can't hook my hand with the straight pen, but I can hook it a little bit with the brush marker, and so I'll do that. So let's see. So now if I'm hooking, and there I go, lefty problem, smeared the ink right away. All right. So if I'm going to hook the hand and I want it to be thick and thin, it's going to take a lot of play to find that right angle, and I'm guessing it's going to be maybe 45 towards your left hand side. And again, this is not my natural, so it's a little wonky. Yeah, well, I think they're going to want to tilt it, because they're not going to be able to come all the way around like a right-handed person was, so they may have to compensate by tilting their paper towards their left. Does that make sense? So like if this was straight on and I hooked, I wouldn't quite get the thick and thins, I don't think. Well, maybe. So I think somewhere between straight on and 45 is going to help them to get thick and thins if they're hooking. I know, it looks difficult because it kind of is. And like I said, it's not my natural grip, so that's hard. Hopefully you can get her to underwrite. Yeah, and so that but then again, she's going to have to change whatever her grip of the pen is, because underwriting is easier for a mirror. Underwriting for those that hook or curl their hand is going to be a little more difficult, because they're used to having their hand on top of or over top of the work. So it might be about her practicing mirroring. Yeah, well, she she says that she hooks her hand. Because, like I said, I've asked some of my lefties that follow me, and the majority of them are mirrors. So here's with the... Oh, okay. With the fountain pen, I end up changing my orientation to, like, I'll keep the paper in front of me, and instead of having my hand up, I'll just come down a little bit. So that's another option too, if she feels okay coming on this side, and then that would be more along the lines of being able to use a straight pointed nib. Yeah, it's just that since this positioning is not my normal, it takes a lot of thought there, because I'm typically a pen pusher. So that's what I meant by pushing, or this direction would be a pull of the pen, more so. But those that hook their hands are an incredible challenge, even for someone like me that's already left-handed, because hooking is way outside my normal. So hopefully that was helpful. That's the first time that I've done that. I've kind of avoided doing pointed pen for my letterers just because I think it's one of those things that you have to do a lot of practice with it and learning which paper orientation you like and which nibs really feel most comfortable in your hand. So mine is just the regular straight speedball with the Mitchell copper plate nib. So no, she shouldn't be discouraged at all. I think that that was one of my goals for when I started sharing more about teaching lettering, was just that it's a skill that anyone can learn, and it's just a little bit about finding how you're going to compensate. So the tools are what they are. You need to find what makes the little tweaks that have them work for you. So that's all I have. I'm going to run off because my kids have to get to dance. So hopefully that was helpful. I'll do more pointed pen in the future, I think. But right now we'll get back to my regular lovely love your lettering girls. You're so very welcome, Becca. It was my pleasure. I will talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.